CMP has now confirmed that at least 22 people were killed in this weekend's terrible attacks. And we're learning more about those who were taken from us. We're seeing just how much each of them was loved. Again, I want to extend my deepest condolences to all friends and families of the victims. Know that Canada is standing with you. On sait maintenant qu'au moins 22 personnes ont perdu la vie dans la tragédie.
We now know that at least 22 people lost their lives during this tragedy in Nova Scotia. We're learning more about the victims, and we see how they were loved by their family and their neighbors. I would like to wish my most sincere condolences to all in Nova Scotia.
Incredibly difficult times. Canadians are reaching out to support each other. People are asking what they can do to help. I heard a great story of a young person here in Ottawa named Felix, who's one of those people putting up his hand. A recent engineering grad from Carleton. He'd been working on communications satellites. A few weeks ago, he talked to a local manufacturer about what they could do in the fight against COVID-19. Now, they've started designing and creating reusable face shields for frontline workers. And Felix isn't the only one stepping up. From coast to coast to coast, young people are pitching in and doing their part. So we're going to do the same for them. Many students are eligible for new programs we've brought in over the last few weeks. Many students will get the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, but others won't. And that leaves some young people worried about what they're going to do. COVID-19 has meant that there aren't as many jobs out there for students. And without a job, it can be hard to pay for tuition or the day-to-day basics. You might normally have turned to your parents for help, but right now Mom and Dad are stretched too. And even if monthly bills aren't the concern, you may have been counting on the summer job for next year's tuition or to get the right experience for your career. As young people, what you're going through matters, and we want to make sure that you'll be okay. So today, I'm announcing our plan to support students right across the country. We're launching the Canada Emergency Student Benefit to provide immediate help. At the same time, we will create new student jobs and double student grants, among other things. All of these measures will add up to approximately $9 billion for students. For today, for the summer, for next year, we're going to be there for you. So let me start with the Canada Emergency Student Benefit. Right now, you might be worried about how to make ends meet. You probably can't work your normal job, and that might be a big problem for rent or for groceries. So we're bringing in the Canada Emergency Student Benefit to help. With this benefit, you'll get $1,250 a month from May to August. And if you take care of someone else or have a disability, that amount will go up to $1,750 each month. This benefit is designed for you if you're a post-secondary student right now, if you're going to college in September, or if you graduated in December 2019. It's there for you even if you have a job, but you're only making up to $1,000 a month. The period covered by the benefit will start on May 1st, and your payments will be delivered through the Canada Revenue Agency. We'll be working with opposition parties to move forward on legislation to put this new benefit in place. Aujourd'hui, on lance un plan de 9 milliards de dollars.
Today we're launching a $9 billion program for students. We are implementing the Canada Emergency Student Benefit to help those going through hard times due to COVID-19. From May to August, you will receive $1,250 a month, and if you take care of another person or if you have a disability, you could receive up to $1,750 a month. This benefit will help you if you're studying right now, if you're going to school in September, or if you graduated in December 2019, you are eligible. And if you have a job but you earn $1,000 or less per month, you are also eligible. Payments will be retroactive to May the 1st, and will be paid through the Canada Revenue Agency. We will work with opposition parties so that the bill will be passed, allowing us to implement this new benefit.
A lot of students. The month of May normally marks the start of a summer job. But right now, it might be really tough to find something. You may have been looking for weeks without any success. So we're going to help. Our government is creating 76,000 jobs for young people, in addition to the Canada Summer Jobs Program. These placements will be in sectors that need an extra hand right now, or that are on the front lines of this pandemic. We're also going to be providing specific support for Indigenous students. And for student researchers and graduate students, we're going to invest over $291 million to extend scholarships, fellowships, and grants to make sure you can keep working. Depending on your funding, it'll be extended by either 3 or 4 months. Of course, a paying job isn't the only valuable way to spend your summer. Volunteering can be a fantastic way to build skills, make contacts, or just give back. If you're volunteering instead of working, we're going to make sure that you have support too. Students helping in the fight against COVID-19 this summer will soon be eligible for $1,000 to $5,000, depending on your hours, through the new Canada Student Service Grant. Your energy and your skills can do a lot of good right now. Si vous êtes étudiant, c'est difficile de trouver un job.
If you're a student, it's very difficult to find a summer job due to COVID-19. Our government will create 76,000 new jobs for youth in sectors that require a hand or that contribute directly to our fight against COVID-19. These jobs will be in addition to the Canada Summer Jobs Program. We will also offer targeted support for Indigenous students. As for those who do research, we will invest over $291 million to extend their scholarships, fellowships, or grants by 3 or 4 months, allowing them to continue their work. We are also implementing the Canada Student Service Grant. If you decide to volunteer to help us in our fight against COVID-19 this summer, you could receive between $1,000 and $5,000, depending on the hours worked. We need your energy and your skills.
It may be hard for the next little while, but we're going to support you through it. We're doubling the student grants that the government gives out for the 2020-21 school year. For students in Quebec, the Northwest Territories, and Nunavut, we will be providing funding to the provincial and territorial governments so that they can increase their financial aid programs. At the same time, we'll provide over $75 million to increase support specifically for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis Nations students. Aujourd'hui, j'annonce aussi qu'on double le montant des
Also, I would also like to announce that we are going to double the student grants for 2020-2021 for students from Quebec, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. We will give this funding to the provincial and territorial governments so that they are able to add to their own assistance programs. In parallel, we will invest over $75 million to support First Nations, Inuit, and Métis Nation students.
Let me say this. As you're building your future, thinking about how to contribute, about starting a family or a career, all of a sudden, you're faced with a massive crisis. This uncertainty that you feel can be overwhelming. But in Canada, we look out for each other. We value education, service, hard work. These measures will help you get through this so that you can build that career and the future that you've been looking forward to, that we've been looking forward to for you. On the other side of this, when the economy comes roaring back, you will define our path forward, a path towards a better, more equal society. That's what we're doing together. Today, on Earth Day, we are reminded that the way forward includes a healthy environment and a strong, sustainable economy. Although our immediate focus is on the fight against COVID-19, we will always do our part to build a brighter future for tomorrow. Aujourd'hui, le jour de la Terre, nous rappelle qu'on doit.
Today, on Earth Day, we know that we have to reconcile a sustainable economy and a healthy environment. Even if we're concerned with the fight against COVID-19, we will always do what we need to build a better future for our generation and generations to come. I know that over the past 6 weeks, our lives have changed. That right now, the future can seem very uncertain, regardless of who you are, whether you be a student, an essential worker, a business owner. We are there for you. We need for you to do your share. So please continue to stay at home, to wash your hands, and to keep a distance of 2 meters from one another. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister.
Modérateur, c'est à vous.
Thank you. Merci. Première question, Raymond Filion, TVA. À vous.
Oui, bonjour, Monsieur le Premier ministre. J'aimerais vous
Hello,
entendre,
Mr. Prime Minister. I'd like to hear you speak to the horror story that we see in many senior centers. People are dying, hungry, alone in soiled beds. There's a lack of staffing. Given the severity of the situation, do you have the intention of intervening? Yes, we are helping provinces, and we are there with necessary support. We are working with them to make sure that employees working with this modest revenue will be paid a little bit more. We're trying to implement regulations throughout the country to make sure that our seniors are protected. We all understand that this is an extremely serious situation for our seniors. The long-term care homes have been hard hit by COVID-19. People who are working there every day normally do an extraordinary job, and now their job has been made even more difficult. As a society, at all levels of government, we have to do more to protect these seniors. Do you think that Quebec has the situation under control? We're talking about a crying need for staff. Is there anyone you can send right now to help? If yes, why have these people not been deployed? I'm talking about the military contribution. We've received requests for help from Quebec, and we have sent help. For example, we sent military medical staff. We continue to work with the province of Quebec to provide the assistance that we can. They're working very hard to solve this.
Merci. Next question, Teresa Wright, the Canadian Press, line open.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Could you please explain why will you not make the CERB a universal benefit?
We just move forward in support for students today. The Canada Emergency Response Benefit is there for people who lost a paycheck. We recognize that because of COVID-19, there are many people out of work who were counting on a paycheck to be able to pay for their groceries, to be able to pay their rent. And those people are helped by the CERB. We now are moving forward with direct help for students. In many cases, post-secondary students, school year ends or term ends now at around the end of April, and normally at the beginning of May, they'd be looking for summer jobs. This is something that obviously is not going to happen the same way or as easily this year. That's why we're moving forward with the Canada Emergency Student Benefit that will help students who can't find a job. But on top of that, we're going to be helping students across the country by creating new jobs, by finding areas where young people can serve, can contribute, can get jobs. And if they volunteer, we're going to be rewarding them for volunteering as well. We need to create a range of measures to support young people, and that's what we've done today to the total of $9 billion. At the same time, we recognize that there are further gaps that we need to continue to work on in terms of covering. We've moved very fast for most people, but we continue to work with allies and opposition parties and partners in across areas in the country to deliver more help to those who need it.
Follow-up question.
Aujourd'hui, nous annonçons de l'aide pour les étudiants.
Today we're announcing assistance for students. The CERB is helping many people who have lost their paycheck. We needed to help these people. We also recognize that some students that are finishing up their term are seeking employment for summer jobs, and it will be very difficult for them to find a job. So this is why we're creating new jobs in sectors where they can be useful. We are also going to provide this Canada Emergency Student Benefit to make sure that students unable to find a job will be able to pay for their rent and for their groceries.
With all due respect, I don't believe you answered the question. We've heard many Canadians who are falling through the gaps. You've even said so yourself. There's a growing push for universal benefit. So why is this something that you are not doing at this point?
Our focus at this point, and from the very beginning, it has been on getting help to people who needed it. There are millions of Canadians who need help. There are others who do not need help. And we felt and we feel that targeting the maximum amount of help to the people who needed it quickly was the right way to begin to get through this process. That's what we did with the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, that is delivering that help to over 8 million Canadians already. We need to do more. That's why we're announcing the Canada Students Benefit. But our approach has been to give as much help as possible to the people who need it. That's why we took the approach that we did. Okay. Notre approche dans cette situation.
Our approach during this crisis has always been to provide as much assistance as possible to those who need it. Millions of Canadians need the Canada Emergency Response Benefit and need the wage subsidy. So we try to deliver very quickly. There are some Canadians who do not require assistance right now. They continue to work and get a paycheck. We are trying to provide assistance to those who need it. We have to be there for each other, and we put the emphasis on those that required help immediately.
Prochaine question, Marie-Vastel Le Devoir, à vous.
Oui, bonjour, Monsieur Trudeau.
Hello, Mr. Trudeau. I would like to hear you speak to the border and lifting the quarantines in some provinces. Some provinces are saying that they want to open up their economy as quickly as possible. Are you comfortable with lifting the quarantine? You say that you want to allow a certain amount of flexibility with regards to the border with the U.S. Could you explain what you meant? For example, could provinces open up the border with the U.S. before the federal decree that keeps the border closed till May 21st? First of all, we all recognize that this pandemic is affecting different parts of the country in different ways. Different provinces and different territories will make their own decisions with regards to the next steps to open up the economy. We are doing our work. That is, that we're coordinating with the provinces to make sure that the approach will be based on science and on similar considerations throughout the country. This way, people will understand what is happening in the region and throughout the country. Now, with regards to the U.S. border, measures announced that will be in place up until May 21st will be in place throughout the country. As for after May 21st, we will have more discussions with the U.S. and with the provinces as we go along. This is a national approach.
We recognize that different provinces will make different decisions about how and where to start restarting and reopening their economies. We are going to work to coordinate so that we're basing ourselves on shared values, principles, and scientific approaches right across the country. But yes, provinces will take their decisions that we will work to try and coordinate in a cohesive story for all Canadians. In regards to reopening the border with the United States, that is a federal and national decision that we have brought in, that we will continue to coordinate with the United States, but the national measures will apply right across the Canada-US border, regardless of provinces or jurisdictions.
En suivi?
Merci. Et pour revenir à la situation...
Follow-up question. To come back to the situation in Quebec. Over 50% of the deaths in the country seem to be in Quebec. As a Quebec MP, what is the impact on you? And I know that health is a provincial jurisdiction, but what can you do other than increasing wages or negotiating flexibility for commercial rents? What can you do tangibly on the ground to flatten this curve that is still steadily increasing? We respect provincial jurisdiction. I think that Quebec is doing a good job in managing these issues. Of course, we are there as a federal government to provide assistance when it is needed and when it's asked for by Quebec. We sent a military medical staff to help Quebec. We didn't send them elsewhere in the country because this was a request made by the Quebec government. We sent direct assistance with other measures that will help Quebec. For example, there are regulations with regards to the long-term care homes. These are being applied throughout the country, and they are aligned with the decisions made by Quebec. We will be there as partners and to respond to needs with regards to PPE. Quebec asked for PPE, and we will respond. The federal government has a role to play, but we will always respect and support the provinces in their respective jurisdictions.
Thank you. Merci. Next question,
Prime Minister, good morning. This is Rajinder Saini from Toronto. Prime Minister, last week government decided to decrease the lower limit of payroll to $20,000 to qualify for $40,000 loan. This is a welcome step, but still there are many small businesses like small restaurants, convenience stores, bakery shops, dry cleaners who won't be able to get this benefit because of many reasons. There are businesses, these are businesses already struggling. Now we have got a report today that in Toronto, 2/3 of these businesses won't be open after 3 months. What government is considering to help these businesses?
We know that businesses, particularly small businesses, are facing an extremely difficult time through COVID-19. And we need to support these small businesses, not just because they are main drivers of our economy and of our employment right across the country, but because we need them to be in good shape when this COVID-19 crisis is through so that they can come back. That's why our focus has been on helping workers who lose a paycheck and people who lose their jobs with the Canada Workers Subsidy and the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. We also recognize that small businesses, including the smallest businesses, need help with access to credit, which is why we put in place a $40,000 loan with a $10,000 non-repayable element that is going to be helping small businesses significantly. As you said, we heard from some very small businesses that weren't qualifying when we had the threshold at $50,000, which is why we dropped it down to $20,000, which is the equivalent of a one full-time worker at minimum wage for the year. That was the threshold that we determined was right for small businesses. We recognize that there are other small businesses that are not getting the support they need because of particularities in their circumstances, and we are continuing to work with finance and with business associations to make sure that we're giving these small businesses the support they need, not just to get through this difficult time, but so to make sure that they come back strong at the end of it.
On a follow-up?
Prime Minister, Canadian government is doing its best to bring Canadians back home, but there are 20,000 Canadians stuck in India right now. Many of them are children, ailing seniors. Their families are worried about their well-being. They are frustrated that Canadian High Commission office in New Delhi has not been able to provide them timely help. Even our High Commissioner there has apologized to them for this situation. Is Prime Minister's office aware of this situation and any immediate help for them?
We are very aware of the challenges faced by Canadians all around the world who want to return to Canada at a time where international flights are extremely limited. We continue to work with governments around the world, including the Indian government. We have welcomed over the past month about 20,000 Canadians home through repatriation flights. They all go into quarantine when they're home to make sure that they're not increasing the risk of COVID-19 to everyone else. But it is important to be able to bring home Canadians. There are particularly high demands in some parts of the world, including India, that we are working very, very hard, day and night, to try and resolve. There have been many flights back from India, but there is a need for more.
Bonjour, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Louis Blouin de Radio-Canada. Le syndicat des douaniers dit qu'ils ont une nouvelle directive.
We hear that there is a new regulation with regards to asylum seekers, so we understand that Roxham Road is closed, but those who are arriving at the official entry point will be able to make a refugee claim, and they will be sent to a hotel for lodging. What changed at the border? Does the third safe party agreement still hold? We'd like to have some specifications. According to what I know, the safe third party agreement is still, safe third country agreement is still in place. Did anything change overnight? No, not to my knowledge, but I know that Minister Blair will provide information.
As far as I've been apprised, there haven't been any changes at our posture in the border, but if there have been changes, I'm sure Minister Blair will be able to fill you in on those.
Sur la question du revenu minimum garanti, la question a été posée.
As to the guaranteed minimum income, wouldn't it have been simpler to have a universal program, a more open program? Wouldn't it have been more easy administratively to say, okay, it's one benefit? Why did you opt for this? Would it have been abused? Why? Well, there are two different elements. When we talk about a universal benefit, we understand that some people think it would have been a more simple solution. First of all, it would not have been more simple than managing the CERB. It's not as easy as saying we're going to send out a check to each Canadian regardless of their age or their region. It's more complex than that. And secondly, and the most important reason, we chose to help those who required assistance. Our measures from the beginning recognized that there are some people who lost their job, lost their income because of COVID-19. Not through any fault of their own, but that they require revenue to pay for their groceries, to support their family, to pay for their rent. That is why we chose to go ahead in a targeted, rapid fashion to put in place what was necessary to help these people in dire need. That is what we did. We see that over 8 million Canadians are now receiving the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, and we've just announced a benefit for students, and there will be other announcements to help other people as well.
Yesterday you said you would proceed with gun control legislation at the appropriate time. We've seen other countries, Australia, New Zealand, act very quickly after mass shootings. Why do you think this isn't the appropriate time? And do you not believe that Parliament can't deal, even in their limited form, with two pressing issues at the same time?
We are certainly looking at introducing our new gun control measures that were ready to go before Parliament was suspended of the because of COVID-19. The rules around the unanimous consent motion that governs the return of Parliament in a reduced state specifically state that we need to only introduce measures that are related to COVID-19, but we will certainly be seeing with other parties if there is an appetite to move more quickly given the measures in place, given the tragedy that we just had. Nous étions presque prêts à introduire nos mesures de contrôle des armes.
We were nearly ready to introduce our new measures with regards to gun control, and we are prepared to go ahead with these. The conditions, though, for the Parliament to sit in a limited fashion right now do require that the bills that are tabled only have to do with measures to fight against COVID-19. We are open with discussing with other parties to see if there's an appetite to go ahead more quickly, even during this period of crisis, to tighten up gun control measures.
Things that have been done in other countries, particularly Australia after the Port Arthur massacre in 1996. Are you willing now to revisit the measures that are before Parliament and strengthen them, particularly with regard to ownership of restricted weapons like handguns and certain kinds of semi-automatic rifles?
We made some very strong commitments in the last election campaign on strengthening gun control. We saw there was a significant debate in this country that continues between parties that are in favor of strengthening gun control and other parties that want to weaken gun control. There continues to be a need for debate in this country, but we are resolute that we need to move forward on strengthening gun legislation, on strengthening gun control in smart, common sense ways, and on banning assault-style weapons from this country. They have no place in our communities, in our country, and that's why we will be moving forward with legislation to ban them.
Hi, Prime Minister Tom Perry with CBC. You said in your announcement you're making 76,000 jobs for young people, and that these placements are going to be in sectors that need an extra hand right now and are on the front lines of the pandemic. Can you clarify where that's going to be? I mean, we've heard from farmers who need help. We've heard about contact tracing, meeting people there. Where are these students going to be working?
These are the kinds of things we're looking at. We're looking at help on contact tracing. We're looking at sectors that need extra support, perhaps agriculture and others. There are a number of ways that we're looking at it right now. We will have more to say in the coming days as we develop this, but we know young people want and need good summer jobs, and we're going to try and make sure that they can get them.
And you talked earlier about seniors' homes and the tragedy unfolding there. The government has announced support for essential workers there. I'm wondering, has there been much buy-in? Is that actually helping anyone yet? And as you look further ahead, this is a provincial responsibility. Do you see a greater role for the federal government in ensuring a uniform standard of care? And is that something you're going to be raising with the premiers?
We've seen a couple of provinces like BC and Quebec move forward on support for essential workers who are low paid but in important areas like in long-term care facilities. That's why we are talking with provinces about expanding and supporting them in those programs. There have been discussions ongoing with the provinces, recognizing, as was pointed out, that it's very much a provincial area of jurisdiction, but we recognize this is a problem that we want to help with. I think the larger question that we're all facing is an understanding that in many parts of this country, in many places across this country, the people who care for our most vulnerable are themselves quite vulnerable. And I think we need to have a reflection as we get through this crisis and certainly after it on how we ensure that the people who are taking care of our most vulnerable are not themselves vulnerable. Je pense que, évidemment, on est en train de travailler avec les provinces.
We are working with provinces to provide assistance in different types of ways, including in long-term care homes. But there is a reflection that we're going to have on, as a country, we have to make sure that the most vulnerable are not helped by people that are very vulnerable themselves. We need to make sure that those who are doing this work that is so important, that are caring for our seniors, are caring for very vulnerable people, are not themselves very vulnerable economically.
On seniors, there have been a number of announcements today for students, previously for businesses, etc. I'm wondering specifically in terms of seniors and recently retired people who have lost all their savings or substantial amount of savings due to COVID-19, will there be help for them?
Yes, there is help coming for seniors. We recognize that the first priority was getting income replacements to people who had lost their incomes, lost their jobs. That's what we did with the Canada Emergency Response Benefit and with the wage subsidy. Now, as the school year comes to an end in April for university students, we're moving forward with support for university students because they are going to need help in finding a job, in getting income replacement at a time where they were going to be counting on money to help them pay rent, pay groceries. At the same time, even though many seniors continue to have the same fixed income they had from the government, from pensions, there are concerns both about their long-term savings, which is why we made changes on the RRIF withdrawals, but we also recognize that the cost of living has gone up for seniors as they are facing challenges because COVID-19 targets seniors to a greater degree. So we're working right now on measures for seniors. I want to thank the other parties who have made excellent suggestions, and we will have more to announce in the coming days. Okay. Nous avons priorisé notre réponse pour ceux qui ont perdu.
Our response was, first of all, for those who lost their paycheck with the CERB, with the wage subsidy. We are helping those who needed help from the beginning in this COVID-19 crisis. Today, we're announcing, because we're now at the end of the academic year for post-secondary students, we want to provide them assistance because it will be very difficult for them to find a summer job in May. We are therefore announcing the Canada Emergency Student Benefit. We will also provide help to seniors. We've taken some steps to help seniors, but we will do more, and we will have announcements in the days to come.
Happened over the weekend in Nova Scotia. I'm wondering if your government is looking at introducing federal guidelines for how to deal with an active shooter.
I think there are many families that are grieving incredible losses right now, who are asking themselves questions about how things could have been different, how they might have been able to have been warned earlier. Those are extremely important questions that I know will be addressed through the investigation and through the conclusions. We need to make sure we're doing everything we can every step of the way to protect citizens in any circumstances. And I know those are things that we will be reflecting on and talking about as a country in the coming years, in the coming days and weeks. Merci.
Merci, c'est ce qui met fin à la conférence de presse d'aujourd'hui.